So Dane, seeing as they're a minority, would it be racist to say, shut up and throw?
Well, I'll say this. Pretty much everything that doesn't agree with wokeism is by definition racist. The best I can tell of what the definition of racism has become.
But wouldn't wokeism just want to cancel football?
I mean, of course it wants to cancel it because it's probably an example of toxic masculinity.
If it's not the most definitive sport of male toxic masculinity,
absolutely.
toxic male masculinity, it's hard to put them in the right order sometimes.
But I caveat my answer with a follow-up answer that in the oppression Olympics, last place is always white males, let alone rich white males. And I'm pretty sure a majority of NFL quarterbacks are white males. Therefore, according to the oppression Olympics rule book and social justice wokeism,
which is just as extensive as the NFL rule book,
I believe you can criticize NFL quarterbacks as a group without being racist.
So it was
I
wrong.
think those are the rules.
It was wrong to say shut up and dribble, and it was wrong to say learn to code. But this,
I think we can do this.
Okay.
I think this is uncancelable territory.
Thank God we're not recording right now.
I know. That would be dangerous.
Oh my God. All right, you want to drop it?
What have we done? Yeah, I think we should. Let's try to get canceled for something else. Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 101, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/101. You can find us on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. You can find the videos on YouTube, not Instagram, YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. One day I'll get this thing down pat. And then you can also link up with us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. But wherever you find us, just like, subscribe, share, comment, rate, do all the good things that give us all the bumps in the various algorithms on those platforms, and help us spread the word about this beautiful show and the sane space we've created for you listeners and viewers to enjoy a little bit of sanity in this crazy, crazy world.
Be our Paul Revere without ever having to leave your house.
Yes.
Just like and subscribe and press buttons.
Thank you. And good night. So by the time you're hearing this, hopefully episode 100 is out. We apologize for the delay. Just a little bit of explanation on 100. We tried a new video recording platform for episode 100, the second interview with Grandma, and we run into some issues there, which delayed the release from our normal Wednesday morning. Hopefully that is not an issue going forward. We're going to try to get all the kinks ironed out with that video recording software before we do future interviews with different guests and stuff like that. But we do want to interview more guests and bring more viewpoints onto the show to try to enrich the content for you. But again, hopefully the delay on 100 does not happen again in the future, and we're going to try to.
I'm going to caveat that. The only reason I'm going to caveat that is just regular technology does not like either of us.
That's a fact.
It never agrees with any of us. Like we were told that this application is foolproof. All you do is you download it and it works fine. And by God, if we downloaded it and it didn't work fine, I'd be string me up by my big toes. All right? If I'm lying, I'm dying.
And as you can see,
I'm very virile.
Still here.
I'm so virile. So anyway.
So, and before we jump into today's topics, we do have a new segment today, which kind of we were hiding the ball from you on before the jump in, but we'll get into that here in a second.
I like hiding balls.
But
more Easter eggs. The balls are fine too.
But before we get into the topics for today, we just want to wish America a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, America. What is this? Our 200 and
don't know. I'm not good at quick maths.
A lot. You've been alive for a lot of years, and it's coming to an end. So it's been a good run. Hopefully, all of our viewers and listeners have all their digits connected. They didn't get super blottoed or blow anything off of themselves. And to another 1 year of sibilance in this country before we have a civil war. Sibilance? Civility?
Yeah, that's the word I think you're looking for.
Sibilance? Did I make a new word up?
You did. I've done it before too.
Well, cheers to making a new word up for the birth date of our great nation that is crumbling as we speak. Cheers.
Goes down smooth every time.
Tastes like freedom.
So on this recurring theme, episodes of the end of or the final season of America, we kick off the show with the Culture Corner. And on today's segment of the Culture Corner, we're talking about government doing government things, right? It messes shit up.
Hood rats things,
It messes shit up. And what does it think to do to fix the shit that it messed up? Well, the same shit. Because we have a story from California where the California government, so thank God at least it isn't the federal one, but little column A, little column B, the California government just passed legislation to issue inflation relief checks. Yes, that's right. Stimmy checks to California citizens to help with the inflation that previous stimmy checks caused. David, I don't know how much more there is to say about this topic, but we need to fill out the segment.
The phrase "fight fire with fire" too far. I'd say this is where it's too far. You don't fight inflation with... Take two, run it back. Cool. You don't fight inflation with inflation. You know what happens when you add inflation to inflation?
You get hyperinflation.
What is hyperinflation, Dane?
Oh, I don't know. Zimbabwe, Venezuela.
What's the final form of inflation? This is like super inflation.
Total economic collapse.
Oh, shit. That's not as fun. How's Goku supposed to defeat that with the spirit bomb? How's Batman supposed to outwit that with his gadgets and wizardry?
I mean, it's kind of like, what is that joke from Family Guy? It's like the game of life. You never really win. You just hope to do a little better each time. It's something like that.
It's not really like that because you can't even get, they don't even give you a whole die. They give you you can roll one dice. And if it doesn't land on one, you can't move. Good luck.
Well, I will say about this particular segment in the Culture Corner is that although the headline really tells you all you need to know about this story, about how stupid and incompetent and just completely, utterly inept government is to come up with a solution like this for a problem caused by the same previously prescribed solution, is that on some level, it makes sense, right? It makes sense why politicians would think like this, because you have politicians and celebrities all over social media blaming inflation on Putin's war or corporate greed or, any number of things other than the only fucking thing which causes inflation, which is printing off green pieces of paper that have nothing behind them other than the goods or services they can chase. And so since they don't understand that that's what causes inflation, idiot politicians would think that this would actually be a solution to inflation. But
when some people argue that corporate greed drives Washington, D.C., what with lobbyists and whatnot?
Yeah, but that's not what they're saying.
No, it's never what they're saying. But you could always just turn what the hell they're saying on its head and ask them, well, if you're so against corporate greed, why do you keep voting for the people that are taking advantage of the system and writing more and more laws that make it better and better for you and worse for normal people? The normal people that you're talking to, that they have to give up a little bit more to make sure that American freedom subsides. Or not subsides, but sustains.
Well, that would require the government's monopoly on violence not being for sale to the highest bidder. And we know that that's just not Listen, CERN pushed us off onto some sort of timeline that I would like to get off very sooner rather than later. But we are not yet on a timeline where the only people that control the monopoly on violence are pure angels who aren't susceptible to being for sale to the highest bidder. In fact, quite the opposite. So until CERN pushes us onto that reality timeline, we're in for a bad time over on this one.
You're gonna have a bad time. If you pizza when you want a French fry, you're gonna have a bad time. But if you create more inflation while you're inflated, you're gonna have a bad time.
But before we move out of this segment, I want to speak directly to the politicians who are
listening in droves, by the way,
whose collective IQ is lower than the residential speed limit. Here's how you can keep the whole concept. I know it's really complicated about inflation. And in fact, Fed Chair Powell just admitted this week at a conference that now the Fed understands a little bit more about how much they don't understand about inflation. Those were his exact words. I might be paraphrasing a bit, but that's what he said. But just to simplify,
you don't pass second grade with that sentence, by the way.
No.
They don't let you out of second grade when you're like, I only understand now what I didn't understand while I was going through second grade. They're like, cool, Timmy. We'll see you next year in second grade, you asshole.
So for somebody like Fed Chair Powell and all of the dipshit politicians for whom this sounds like a great idea, here's a little helpful memory device to keep the whole inflation thing.
A mnemonic, if you will?
Not a mnemonic.
Oh, come on.
It's just,
put the effort in.
Come on. It's in the name. You don't, it's not super complicated. Inflation, the reason why it's called that is because you are literally inflating the money supply. You are creating more of a thing than previously existed of that thing. That's it.
This bubble is too big. I need to make it smaller. How do we do that? Add more air to it. Good idea, Jimmy. It's a good thing you passed second grade by explaining it to your teacher that you didn't understand second grade. Where would we be without you? I think I said Jimmy that time. It was Timmy the first time, I think.
So
anyway, it's not important.
If you're asking yourself, is policy proposal A, B, or C going to fix inflation, to be very specific? And the answer or the conclusion of that policy is that we're going to cause more of that thing. The answer to that question would be no. To use David's analogy, the answer would not be to put more air in the balloon. Simple, right? All right. So now that we've settled that, and California decided to be the dipshit guinea pig on itself, California's just a dumpster
for the first
fire
time.
all the way
For
around.
the first time. This is the first time they've ever missed.
You got to miss every once in a while.
Never mind, they've got shit-spattered streets and crime running amok with all that defunding the police. I'm not getting into that. Just saying.
So now that we've solved that problem in the culture corner, we move over to the next segment of Epstein Didn't Kill Himself. And for this segment, we have to travel all the way out of the state of California to the state of California.
Weird. So you mean we went from wine country to like San Diego?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, California is a big place.
To be fair. It's got 54 electoral. 54, 52?
Well, I mean, population-wise, it's big, but I'm also saying
it's
land-wise.
It went down over this last time.
Probably because of policies like this.
Who would have guessed? It's like adding air to a balloon that you want to deflate.
So, also in California, for the Epstein Didn't Kill Himself segment, we have a situation where the state of California accidentally released the names, genders, addresses, birthdays, race, and phone numbers of all conceal and carry permit holders in the state of California.
You know what that accident sounds like? It sounds like you accidentally texted your crush, "Hey, what's up?"
You gonna stop looking at me like that?
No, hold on. I'm not done yet.
Okay.
This is all silence. This is all like dead space.
Yeah, this stays in.
After 15 minutes, I'm not going to make you sit through 15 minutes of me just staring at you. So after 15 minutes, you're like, "Oh my God, so sorry, wrong number." So anyway, what's up? Like That's legitimately what the California just said. Oh, we made a mistake. My bad. But are you cool? Do you like think I'm hot or what? Do you, Dane? Tell me I'm hot. Tell me I'm hot.
You're quite an attractive guy.
Thanks.
I can see why the ladies fawn over you.
Finally got the text.
There you go.
That's the text I was waiting for.
So, as we like to do in this Epstein didn't kill himself segment, we like to give you examples from the past, sometimes more recent past than others, but just examples to kind of drive home the point that we want to make with the Epstein didn't kill himself segment. And in this case, the point is whether government is incompetent or they do shit on purpose, in either case, you probably don't want them controlling very many aspects of your life. And in fact, not only do you not want that, but anybody who then argues for government to do more things should probably have a lobotomy. I know that's frowned upon these days. Maybe we should put them in a time machine back to the 50s or whenever lobotomies were cool. But they definitely need one because some sort of medical intervention with whatever's going on in their brain needs to be checked out.
It's called opioid addiction, Dane. And it's very easy to afford. You just go into your doctor, you say you don't feel good, and he just prescribes it for you from Purdue Pharma. And you just die on pills.
Sounds like a great time.
And you never get held accountable as the person that is the corporate donor of heroin. Anyway,
within the last couple years, there's been some rather large government either incompetence or malfeasance news events that have gone on. Again, for even more than what I'm getting ready to list here, just listen back through our last 100 episodes and you'll get plenty more. But
like and subscribe, share, do all that.
Just three big examples. We have, I want to say, 2015 story of the Pentagon just losing track of $1 billion. Just couldn't account for it. Some auditors went in and said, "Hey, bro, you guys are $1 billion shy when I, tally up these columns. What's up?" And the Pentagon was like, "I don't know. Raise the budget next year."
What are you gonna do? Sue me? Huh? Paisano?
Piling on top of that is a government, and this is government wide at the federal level. The government could not account for $21 trillion. Ladies and gentlemen, we're $30 trillion in debt. I don't know
that could really go a long way to solving that crisis.
I don't know what percentage, because again, quick math's not my strong suit. I don't know what percentage 21 is of 30, but it's a large one. And they just simply can't account for $21 trillion.
And by the way, all that money
was
raised by the Senate, the House of Representatives, the Supreme Court, and the legislative branch, or the executive branch.
David,
I just listed all of it. I just fucked it up.
Yeah. The House and the Senate is the legislative branch.
I know what it is, Dane.
Do you need to go back and watch your schoolhouse
right there?
Your Schoolhouse Rock?
I'm just a bill sitting on Capitol Hill. That's where I was taking them to, but I fucked it up. Okay. I got right to the end, and then I missed the 2-foot putt. Anyway, all I'm saying, they all donated all of their funds to go into that particular $21 trillion, right? 21?
Oh, yeah, out of their own pockets?
Out of their own pockets.
Of course.
It definitely wasn't our own tax-paying money that was squandered needlessly, that probably went into pockets that we would definitely not want them to go into. And their best answer was,
See, and actually not a historical event, but actually a current one, an article I shared with David, but reminds me of this, is that some Ukrainian officials have recently been found splurging with a whole bunch of money, who God knows where that came from. I don't know. Could it be from the $54 billion the United States has loaned them over the last few months, or just gave them?
Oh, we loaned it.
They have been spending that money on luxury residences and vacations in places like Switzerland and things like that. And again, every time I see that, my mind automatically goes to, yeah, it's a government money laundering scheme. They say, "Hey, we're spending money out. We're helping Ukraine. That's what the money's going to. We're helping people because of the COVID crisis. The $500 billion that David and I covered that they lost, estimated on the low end. These are all just government money laundering schemes. It's all the same thing, just under different names.
Dane, God damn it, that's because we live in a utopia. Detroit isn't crumbling. Chicago's doing great. California is fucking the golden state. New York is thriving. We have no infrastructure problems. We have no educational problems. We don't have, like, everybody is buying meat. Every calorie costs a penny. Put it that much. Like, if this isn't fame, bro, I don't know what is. So of course we're just going to hand money away like it's going out of style.
Speaking of the topic of 4th of July, remember the White House told us last year we saved 16 cents on our 4th of July celebration.
Jesus Christ! Put that towards the national budget of $31 trillion?
Now, something tells me for this 4th of July, they're probably not going to release a similar statistic, but I'm guessing there. As we say, tomorrow's news today. Are you saying
this might have something to do with inflation upon inflation upon inflation?
Perhaps, perchance.
Oh, fuck.
So the last thing on my list here is the IRS targeting of conservative groups to make sure that they don't get their tax-exempt status, according to the IRS. And
that seems fair and free.
This happened in 2013 under Lois Lerner's direction, who worked at the IRS, and she was head of, I forget the segment of the IRS, but basically the segment that reviewed applications for tax-exempt status, so like nonprofits, things like that. And it came out in the analysis after the fact that conservative organizations, if they had the wrong buzzwords in their name or some other sort of triggering language about them, the IRS would review them a little bit more intently and be like, no, we don't think we're going to give you the tax exempt status that we're giving to these other groups because you aren't sufficiently on board with the narrative. And really what this all goes back to, going back to the California accidentally disclosing all of this information about conceal and carry holders, not a week after the Supreme Court strikes down,
not moments ago,
a New York law preventing conceal and carry holders from carrying their guns outside of their home. Maybe that's just a coincidence in timing from California.
Definitely wasn't petulance. Definitely wasn't striking back for not getting their way.
But either they are extremely incompetent, again, if we take the accidental language at face value,
along with poor timing,
or they're petty children who, to David's point, didn't get their way and they said, we'll show you, but not show you like the 9 Supreme Court justices or anything like that. No, we're going to completely, I don't know if scapegoat's the right word, but basically throw our own citizens, California citizens, under the bus, who, by the way, let's keep in mind.
By the way, they've been through the most. They've been through the most during this COVID lockdown. They've been told they can't operate their businesses. They can't go outside. If they go outside, they can wear a mask for 15 minutes. But if they don't, COVID's going to get them. It's going to eat them alive. Meanwhile, their governor is fucking eating at the French Laundry. They're all suffering. They're all losing their jobs. They're all doing this shit. If only you could give them a little reprieve. And then they did what, Dane?
That's a good point that David made, and I want to follow up on that. Is I want all of the 2 people from California that listen and follow this podcast, and the handful from New York or Illinois or all of the other states we shit on. Please don't take it personally, because as we always say, we love our country, we hate our government. We love California, New York, and Illinois. Great places to visit.
Right.
International cities that are the envy of the world. Great climate in California. Tons of fun things to do. Great place to live. We really do legitimately feel for a lot of the average everyday man and woman that live in California.
Despite the fact you shit on us nearly constantly. It's fine. We get it. We know we deserve it.
And also, but we also will not exempt you out of responsibility for voting for the government that you have out there.
We love you. We just don't like your decisions.
So David is right. You've gone through a lot. However, the point we wanted to make about this is, remember, these conceal and carry holders that have had all of their personal information put on blast accidentally by the California government, the only reason the government had that information to accidentally disclose in the first place is because these were law-abiding citizens. These were people who wanted to exercise their, forget constitutional, their inalienable right to self-defense and own a gun. And they said, well, my government's putting all these restrictions on me and I got to jump through all these hoops and turn over my information to do it. And they followed the law. And this is the point we always make about gun control is these are not the people you have to worry about. These are the ones that jump through the government's hoops when the government says, or ask how high when the government says jump. It's the criminals, the ones that didn't give all of their information to the government to be accidentally turned over and made public. They're the ones who aren't going to care about any gun control measure going forward. So again, whether California was incompetent or whether they were being petty little bitches talking to you, Gavin Newsom, to punish your own citizens for doing the right thing according to the law because you're mad about what happened in the Supreme Court, in either case, you're unfit to lead. Rant over. Go ahead, David.
All I'm going to say is that it's startling how many people keep getting screwed over for doing the right thing. You think you're a law-abiding citizen, you think you're doing the right thing, then all of a sudden your information is spattered out there nearly constantly. And I'm sure this was covered 0 times on CNN, MSNBC, because that would be a black mark on the new legislature that they're trying to pass through, that doubling down on background checks, doubling down on what you can and can't do to get a gun, that seems a little contrite when you can't even protect the information that you're collecting from us to protect us from us with these weapons of mass destruction that you keep. Excuse me. Let me use their verbiage. Weapons of war. So I have to give up all my freedoms to you and tell you who I am and what I do. And I mean, you might as well have a picture of my goddamn butthole at that point. And you just released it and said, whoops. So what's the repercussions? What's the repercussions for you doing that? When do your feet get held to the fire for screwing up on this massive level? In fact, I'd argue that this is a huge backstep to what his party, Gavin Newsom, referring to the Democratic Party, is trying to get passed right now. If you can't even protect concealed licenses, how are you going to protect us? How are you going to protect the American people with any amount of legislation that you have? And then I think I speak for both of us when I say that you're not interested in protecting us. You're just interested in having more hoops to jump through. You're interested in having more laws on your side. You're interested in having more control. And that's basically what it's all about. And at the end of the day, we keep hearkening. The best security that you have comes from within the house, extends to your neighborhood, extends to your region, extends to your city, extends to your state, extends to your everything. It starts at home. You are responsible for you. Don't trust Capitol Hill, and certainly don't trust Gavin Newsom, and certainly don't trust any other, I almost said dictator, politician that says they have your best interest in mind. Because we're 101 episodes in, and I think we've proven 202 times over that they don't care about you. This is all theater. This is all theatrical. Nancy Pelosi lined up for a fucking photo shoot and elbowed a little kid in the head. No one covered it. But Trump grabs a grown man and moves him over 5 feet or 2 feet. And it was the buzz for a week. Hunter Biden has a pistol in his hand, snorting coke, talking to a hooker, gets a wire transfer from his father to pay the hooker.
A gun he got, by the way.
Legally. He went through the restriction.
No. A gun he got, by the way, by lying on his application to purchase the gun. So, again, somebody who wouldn't be disclosing this information because he didn't follow the law, like all the people that also don't follow the laws.
Could you imagine, please, please imagine for a second, that's not Hunter Biden.
Yeah, imagine it's Jared Kushner. Yeah.
No, not Jared Kushner. Fuck that.
Or Don Jr.
Jr. is where I was going. Imagine that was Don Jr.
Oh, yeah.
Holy fuck, the Senate trials would be out of control. We'd watch it for 2 months. They just keep getting pixelated further into the picture. Like, he had coke on the thing. He had this on the thing. Like, we got the wire transfers. Like, it's just theater. They don't care. They're not trying to run this country. But Dane, I yield the rest of my time if I haven't exceeded it by now.
So I believe our point in Epstein didn't kill himself has been roundly made, which takes us into our next and new segment. Again, this isn't going to be an every episode segment, but
can we get like David, stars and like?
We'll talk to Carlos.
Okay.
David has been barking up the tree to get this segment on the show for a while. If you'll remember, I forget the exact episode numbers, but in the past, we've talked about people that we actually liked in the past, that we respected for a lot of reasons.
And still like, we can forgive, but we don't forget. You don't forget.
David's more forgiving than I am. But David has been wanting, and I'm going to, David, correct me if I'm messing up the name of this segment, To Catch a Falling Star. Is that correct?
There you go. It's a play. Well, I'm just going to hit on it.
Smart people listen and watch this show. They'll get it.
They'll get it.
Yeah.
It's a play.
So, and the ostensible purpose of this particular segment is precisely to talk about people that we like or liked. But when, and again, I forget the exact episode number, but when Arnold says, I'm going to let David do the impression, when he says, what do you say, David?
Screw your rights. You need to get out there. You need to take a shot. You need to get down there. Get your arm. The crystal knocked. Wow. Get the chopper.
Yeah.
There's vaccines in the chopper.
Yeah. So Arnold basically went off on his tirade about how your freedom doesn't matter. You need to get the jab, and how Trump is, or what was the crystal knock reference? I remember he said it, but what was he talking about?
I fucking don't know. He was talking about like how they took away their freedoms, but then said that other people are trying to take away your freedoms, but you need to take a shot to get your freedoms back.
Yeah. It's like, whatever. You get the point.
Well, so, maybe it was two. Maybe we're conflating it. Maybe it was one, because I know he did two.
He had a couple different comments. Yeah.
And then, but let's focus on the one.
Yeah, the screw your freedoms.
Or he just says, screw your freedoms.
Yeah.
Go get the shot. It's like,
Yeah. And then another example is we have, Stephen Colbert, and Jesus Christ, has he become a mouthpiece for
vaccine
the regime lately?
Like to tequila?
Yeah. Just
like, come on.
It's gross, man. Anyway, so these are people that we, again, for me previously, maybe David still likes them. I don't know. As soon as you, in my view, and we're going to get into today's target of To Catch a Falling Star here in a second, but in my view is if you are going to have a platform, and a big one, no matter how you got it, it is incumbent upon, now I would say even if you don't have a platform, you have a responsibility to educate yourself on something before you talk. But especially if you have a platform, the larger your megaphone, I'm applying the age-old adage, to whom much is given, much is expected. That's all I'm doing. I feel like that's a fair metric by which to judge people that are in the limelight. And which brings us to today's To Catch a Falling Star, because he hasn't been around as long as Colbert or Schwarzenegger, but as long as he's been in the public eye, I think David and I have been, kind of fans from the sideline. He's got a cool swagger on the field. He's generally has a cool demeanor, like his in the huddle, like hot mics are entertaining and all that kind of stuff. And we're talking about Joe Burrow.
Joseph.
Swaggy Joe. And I will say, and again, this is not a universal across the board in every topic, shut up and dribble. But in the context of opening your ignorant mouth about something when it literally takes 5 seconds to be at least knowledgeable enough about a topic to understand that there's nuance to it before you open your mouth. If you're not going to do that, then I have no problem telling you to shut the fuck up and dribble. And that's exactly what I would like to say to Joe Burrow, because he had two quotes. One a couple weeks ago after the Uvalde shooting, he said, quote, "If you're not going to outlaw everything, you've got to at least make it harder to get those crazy guns that everybody's using." So that first clause, if you're not going to outlaw everything, kind of implies that
Is he from California?
I think he's from Ohio.
Same difference.
So that first clause suggests that if they were to hypothetically outlaw everything, Joe would probably be mum's the word. Wouldn't have anything to say about that. Probably even cheer it. But then you just got to get those crazy guns. That's just the typical Karen. That thing with all the black metal and plastic on it looks super scary, and it's a weapon of war. So again, Joe, pump the brakes, guy.
If you want to go nuance,
educate yourself.
Let's go nuance. If you think there's nuance within every subject, let's go nuance right here. Do you think he's saying that because he truly believes it, or do you think he's saying that because you think that he knows that it'll play well in the media and it'll get covered?
Well, as we discussed a couple episodes, it's that whole broader cultural mentality of I'm for the current thing. The NPC, as long as it's at least portrayed to be popular amongst most people, then they're just going to regurgitate those opinions because, again, it's all about virtue signaling and building up your social credit score. Even if we don't actually have one like China, everybody's kind of incentivized to make sure that the most people like them. I think Joe and people like this NPC, I'm for the current thing mentality, would probably be unnerved by the fact that what they're told is the popular opinion, the way to go things by the media establishment is probably, if you went out and asked the average American, probably not the most popular. But, they can't be bothered to read past the headline on any particular subject. So they're just going to regurgitate the talking points and expect the pat on the backs. But then again,
if you take your cues from Joe Burrow, from Stephen Colbert, from Arnold Schwarzenegger, How to Live Your Life, and one of those three resonates very, very hardly with me. How would you say resonates? Very strongly. Hardly is resonates very strongly with me. You should really evaluate yourself. If you took Joe Burrow's words to heart and said, you know what, he throws touchdowns, he might have a finger on the pulse of what we need to do with this country. You need to look at yourself. If you're going to take diplomatic policy writing from a fucking third-year quarterback, then maybe you shouldn't have voted this next election. Maybe you should sit this next one out. Let the other people vote.
David, that's true, but again, and we say that all the time.
Right.
But that person is not listening or watching a show like this. Now, maybe they'll stumble across it on TikTok.
We can only hope.
And we have a TikTok go viral and maybe it reaches some of those people.
We don't dislike you. Come on, listen to us.
But something tells me that those people are going to be immediately turned off by the simple fact that we disagreed with Joe, let alone I went a little more over the top with my language and telling him to shut the fuck up and dribble. But I, will stand by that and repeat it again and again. But that's what Joe said a couple weeks ago. Joe's most current I'm for the current thing is, and again, David nixed me on talking a little bit more in depth about this topic, but the Dobbs decision, the overturning of Roe versus Wade, Joe shared, and again, this is such the NPC I'm for the current thing culture. They can't even be bothered to come up with something original and think for themselves. He shared this. It's not a tweet or really a meme. It's just a fucking incoherent, rambling diatribe of justification for abortion, which again has absolutely nothing to do with the Dobbs decision. And I'm going to very shortly summarize that to show you how it doesn't. But before I get into it, when I read these first two lines, because it's several pages, but I'm just going to read a couple lines of what Joe Burrow put on his Instagram story, you'll know exactly what it is because you've probably seen 50,000 other people send it. It says, I'm not pro murdering babies. I'm pro Becky, who found out at her 20-week anatomy scan that the infant she had been so excited to bring into this world had developed without life-sustaining organs. And then it has a bunch of little paragraphs like that. I'm pro Susan. I'm pro Teresa, blah, 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 blah. Again, Joe couldn't even be bothered to sit down and write out an original thought. Just tweet that out and collect your pat on the backs, Joe.
But here's the thing. If you know anything about sport, if you know anything about contracts, like seasons, anything like that, you know that these people do not write their own social media posts. They don't write their own, like, they don't take their own pictures. They take a picture, they send it to their fucking agent, who sends it to their media outpost that puts a fucking hashtag, all the right things in there. So what I'm saying is, and I'm always devil's advocate on Catch a Falling Star, because I'm always trying to save these motherfuckers. It's like, I'm saying that he's not necessarily that guy. He's got a marketing team behind it. They won't let his popularity go to waste, clearly. So what I will say is that if Joe Burrow was any kind of a man that we believe in on this podcast, he would fire his marketing team immediately after they put out something like that. If it wasn't his words and his, or even his ideology to formulate that 2-page farcical analogy, then they should be fired on Monday of this week.
Right. And or here's the example, and I will use the GOAT as
Cristiano Ronaldo?
No, a different GOAT. I will use the GOAT as an example for what exactly we're talking about. And this isn't full shut up and dribble, but it was like back in the 90s, and I forget, there was some kind of court case that happened, and it was like, basically the conclusion was like Republicans bad. And somebody asked Michael Jordan, they said, how do you feel about this?
GOAT.
How about X, Y, or Z topic? And Michael Jordan's pithy response, which really got to the heart of the matter, said, you know what? Republicans buy Jordans too. And the point that he's making there, in less syllables than one paragraph of that multi-page thing from Joe Burrow that he couldn't even come up with on his own, is, listen, either I don't have an opinion, and that's allowed, by the way, in America. You're allowed not to have an opinion, even on a highly contentious topic.
You can plead the fifth.
I either don't have an opinion, or I haven't looked at the issue enough to be able to opine intelligently on it, and giving the platform that I have the due respect that it should have, and that I should be very well versed in whatever you're asking me about before I opine. I'm just going to dismiss you with Republicans buy shoes too. Now, of course, that was turned against Jordan at the time, and he's just a greedy da-da-da-da. He has no principles because he wants to sell shoes to these evil, terrible Republicans.
How are those Jordans doing, by the way?
Whatever is their argument for why that was the wrong thing to say. But again, that is the right thing for somebody with that size of a platform to say. Either you are totally, totally well-researched and just know everything about a certain issue, in which case, talk away. Celebrity.
Like Colin Kaepernick.
Athlete, and anything. Just talk away as long as you know what you're talking about. But if you don't, and you're just going to mindlessly regurgitate this nonsense, just shut the fuck up and dribble. Just shut up, Joe. So you know what? I was kind of bummed you lost the Super Bowl. Other than Von Miller being on the Rams, which I was rooting for, I was kind of rooting for the Bengals. Now, I hope you never see another Super Bowl rest shot. But again,
you are petty.
Because
for nothing else, for all your piety, you are super petty.
Listen, once you cross the line into aligning yourself with the regime,
we've seen it enough.
It's no quarter.
101 episodes.
Burn the fucking ships.
Right.
All right? That's all I'm saying.
I understand your viewpoint, but I always want a space for reconciliation. If Joe Burrow comes out on Monday and said, hey, my PR team just took what I said with a general text and ran with it, I've fired him since, I have no standpoint, come on back to the fold, brother. Other than that, like, if you actually wrote that, which I highly doubt because he's probably too busy.
He didn't write it. He just shared it.
Right.
He shared a screenshot of it.
Or if he didn't sign off on it, or he was drunk.
Right.
There's a multitude of different explanations. It's just come out and say, like, listen, that wasn't what I actually intended to say. I don't have any opinion on it because I'm not well versed in it. I apologize. I've made the corrective movements, and let's move on from here.
Listen, of course, there's
always a road back with us.
Right. There's always room for that.
We're not the Democrats.
There's always
a road back with us.
What I'm saying is, on the current grounds, and again, the reason why I'm dubious that he didn't either have oversight of that or whatever is actually because of his guns opinion. And what we say all the time about this NPC, I'm for the current thing, there is no reason why in the abstract, somebody having a stance on one position would mean that you would know exactly what their stance is on a myriad of other unrelated topics. But it's weird. Like, if you have the Ukraine flag in your Twitter bio, I know exactly how you feel about abortion. I know exactly how you feel about guns. I know exactly how you feel about universal health care. I know exactly how you feel about taxing the rich. I know exactly, there's no reason why somebody should hold the same opinions on all those disparate issues, and yet they do, which again tells you, NPC, I'm for the current thing, which is why I think Joe either signed off on or will not retract that if he wasn't the one that actually clicked the button to post.
The perfect analogy and the perfect summation of this topic happened to me today. We were where I work. We were all sitting around hobnobbing, telling jokes and this, that, and the other, and giving each other shit. And I was giving some shit to another guy, and I was like, well, yeah, if you need an interior decorator, he's that guy. But if you also need a mechanic, he's that guy. Or he knows that he built a car himself, and I said, he probably even knew Jesus personally. He probably walked with him on the Sea of Galilee, just hobnobbing around. And then somebody cut me off, and I'm just going to give a general description. She was an overweight 60-year-old. Can I say this? That's an overweight 60-year-old with a headband on and very ally-ish. You can't make fun of somebody. Don't make fun of somebody's beliefs. Like, she became the comedy police right then and there. I was like, but all she had to hear was Jesus. Like, that wasn't even the joke. Like, my whole point was that he would just tell you what he wanted to tell you so he could convince you that he's a goddamn expert in whatever the fuck you're talking about. But she just heard Jesus and went, don't make fun of somebody's beliefs. Oh, thank God, I'm an ally. Oh, I saved somebody from retribution. I saved somebody from feeling bad. I'm such a good person. Like, no, you're actually hurting normal conversations and hurting normal human interaction. That's what this is. If you don't have actual education within what you're talking about and can't remove yourself from the conversation to look at it at a 35,000 foot level, don't weigh in on it. Especially if you have the platform that Joe Burrow has. Period. If you don't know actually what you know or actually what you feel, shut the fuck up until we all figure it out for ourselves.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, there is no room for Joe sharing that and the thousands or millions of other people sharing that. There is no room for a discussion for actually what the case said. And to put it in very bare bones, simple language, the case doesn't make abortion illegal nationwide. It simply says, us 9 unelected justices, right? I thought democracy was supposed to be important. Us 9 unelected, life-appointed judges, it's not our job to have a one-size-fits-all rule for 330 million Americans on a contentious issue like abortion. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, it's not our job. Take it up with your state legislatures. Again, democracy. If you want it legal in your state, legalize it. If you don't want it legal in your state, vote for people that will not let it, or that will make it illegal. Whatever the case may be, it is upholding the sacred, secular religion of democracy.
They just did you a favor.
What is more democratic than saying I'm an unelected, life-appointed judge, and with my stroke of the pen, I shouldn't be able to dictate to 330 million lives, so I'm going to let you decide it at the ballot box in your individual states,
which is closer to home.
And there's absolutely no discussion for that what Joe is doing by sharing that, by saying, sort of implying that Becky is somehow screwed because she lives in the state of Texas and can't, get a bus ride, 2 states over to one that has it legal and get an abortion. There's no room for any of that discussion. It's just, oh my God, we're going into the
You mean like
Handmaid's
some
Tale.
people were screwed during COVID by their state saying they can't work for a living and had to stay home?
And what did a lot of those people do? They left.
Voted with their feet.
Just like you can do with abortion after Dobbs.
Shocking. So, Dane, after all this wonderful foreplay,
Yeah,
you want to drop into the main?
I think we should. And it's going to have to, just like a few episodes ago, it's going to have to be brief because we went long on the other ones. But
we're a little long in the tooth, shall you say?
I think the point can be roundly
Gift and
made
gab.
on the main topic with not as many words. Yes. So what we're talking about is the sort of incongruity this week in David. What's her name?
Ghislaine.
We're going with Ghislaine.
I've always heard
I say
Ghislaine.
her name every different every time I say
Ghislaine, Ghislaine,
Ghislaine.
Ghislaine.
Yeah.
Like
We're going.
Did you hiccup during it? Like
we're going with Ghislaine. String us up by our toes if we got it wrong.
It's like we said Kiev instead of Kiev.
So in the same week, Ghislaine gets 20 years in federal cupcake prison, by the way, but I digress. And
she's on suicide watch though, so
yeah, don't want any I saw a meme this week and it said Ghislaine's first like visitor in a prison, and it was a picture of Hillary Clinton with a mustache on.
My whole point is like, it's going to be the corner. Yeah, it's an apparent suicide. 2 bullet shots in the back of her head. She definitely wanted out of this prison.
So Ghislaine gets 20 years in federal cupcake prison for running an international sex trafficking ring for a billionaire financier and a whole bunch of highly connected and powerful politicians and celebrities and wealthy people and et cetera, et cetera.
The people who run the world.
Yeah. And then in the same week, R. Kelly gets 30 years for essential sex slavery. He was doing some. Let's not poo-poo what exactly he was doing. No pun intended.
Dang.
I didn't.
Oh, dang.
I didn't think that one out before I said it. But
you thought I was going to get us canceled.
I know. We're done.
God.
Anyway, not to downplay is what I meant to say.
The one. Not to piss on the past.
What R. Kelly did, because absolutely atrocious what he did. But when you are comparing the scope of destruction, and I'm talking society worldwide, of R. Kelly doing what he did and all of its horrificness versus a sex trafficking ring of very powerful, well-connected, very rich, highly influential celebrities, politicians, wealthy people, the people that run the world, as David said, that either are, because of their connections, above the law, despite the fact that we're allegedly a nation of laws, not of men, or more nefariously, were set up in sort of a blackmail scheme of, if we can get this powerful person on film with an underage person, then when we say jump, they essentially say how high for the rest of their career. And that trickles down all the way into, within the context of politicians, the policies that they put forward. Now, you want to talk about democracy and the will of the people being affected through their elected representatives. That's pretty fucking undemocratic if some shadowy figures behind the scenes can get Bill Clinton on film doing some naughty stuff. And then when he's president of the United States, he basically does whatever they say instead of what the American people asked him to do by voting for him. I would rather say somebody who sits next to the nuclear launch codes and can start wars and, basically pressure Congress into more spending and all the things that a president can do. That's a rather wide scope of destruction that comes out of that situation than what came out of the R. Kelly situation.
All I'm going to say is we knew the intricate details of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's tumultuous relationship and watched it for 2 weeks nonstop from the time the judge slammed his gavel and said court was in session until he slammed his gavel and said court was adjourned. We saw every second of it played on national media, the news. That being said, Dane, how many seconds of the Ghislaine trial did you see?
I mean,
or fuck it.
You had to hunt just to find it.
Let's go further. Let's go Epstein. How many seconds, how many minutes, how much coverage did you see of the Epstein trial?
I don't, did he go to trial? I thought he died awaiting trial.
That's the fucking point. Like, how...
You're right. The fact that we don't even know.
The fact that we don't even know that happened. When you're talking about, there's a potentiality that there was a nefarious syndicate that could have potentially seized control of all world leaders with blackmail and could manipulate them to their own devices. That is a huge story. I know there was a documentary on Netflix. I know there was. That's the surface area. That I know it's easy to get caught up in, like, well, you know, R. Kelly really tortured these girls and made them eat his poop and pissed on their faces. And it's really easy to get caught up with, well, these girls were just 15 years old getting sex slaved out to like politicians. Like, we need to protect these women. That's cool. Yes. That's the surface level. It's really easy to get caught up in the emotional status of that. And it's not, I'm not, again, to steal a phrase from Dane.
Don't steal that phrase. Steal a different phrase.
Not to demean any of that.
There you go.
Not to
downplay it.
Downplay it. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
But when you get under the surface level, there's a huge fucking story that we all need to know about. Like, this is bigger than Watergate. This is bigger than anything we've ever seen. This is bigger than JFK. If you're telling me that the last sitting presidents, the biggest corporate donors to our government, are compromised and acting out of their own will.
Well, self-preservation, so that those videos and the blackmail doesn't come out.
That's huge. That's telling me that the world that we live in is not the world that you're telling me that we live in. That needs to be covered. That needs to be first page. And we didn't hear dick about it. In fact, Epstein killed himself, which is why we have the whole goddamn segment in the first place, because we all know that he didn't. Like, that was the story. I know it's easy to get caught up, again, in the emotion of all the other stuff that circulates around it, but that's the story. There's a potentiality that our American presidents have been compromised, that the people that run this country have been compromised. And no one's talking about it. That's scary. That's Orwellian. I will give you a Snickers to go into the other room while I kill your mom kind of shit. Like, this is not okay. And if you really think that the corporate media isn't aware of what happened and didn't intentionally do this, then I feel sorry for you. You should check into a clinic. You should go back to first grade and just start your education over. Probably not, maybe homeschool. Maybe homeschool yourself this time, because maybe it'll work out better this time.
And I mean, here's the other thing. I don't think that there is a word in the English language to be able to describe how fucking pissed off you should be about this, because make no doubt about it, the people in her little black book, in Ghislaine's little black book, whose names we'll never know.
Or in Epstein's safe, by the way.
Epstein's safe.
It came out huge implications.
Any of it. Any more information about the names that we actually do have just from the flight logs to Epstein's pedo island. is those people are laughing in your fucking face. They are laughing their asses off because I don't know if I've ever heard of another sex trafficking case where the person is found guilty of sex trafficking for sex trafficking to themselves. Because think about that. She's guilty of sex trafficking. The follow-up question is, to fucking who? Well, you don't know who because you're not allowed to talk about the names or her little black book or the information in Jeffrey Epstein's safe and all that kind of stuff. And I want to quote from the judge who, by the way, it's just a happy little coincidence, I guess, for Judge Allison Nathan, who shortly after the Maxwell case was appointed by President Biden and approved this past week by the Senate to be elevated to the United States Second Circuit. So for those of you not in the whole legal realm, that's one of the appellate courts in the United States, which means she's just one step below the U.S. Supreme Court. Anyway, yeah, that judge got appointed right after the Maxwell trial. I'm sure it had nothing to do with her playing ball and making sure that those names that we don't know weren't too heavily discussed. Here's a quote from Judge Nathan about the Maxwell trial. She said, "That Miss Maxwell is wealthy or that this case is high profile is not a basis for increasing punishment in any regard. But the rule of law demands, and this court must ensure, that whether you are rich or poor, powerful or entirely unknown, nobody is above the law." Really, Judge Nathan? Really? The people in Maxwell's little black book, they're not above the law? The people potentially in Epstein's files that were raided by the FBI and never saw the light of day again, they're not above the law? Really, Judge Nathan? And really, all of you senators that voted to confirm this person to the Second Circuit after she pulled that bullshit and overseeing the trial of Maxwell and then gives her 20 years. 20 years in federal cupcake prison for years of sex trafficking underage girls to be diddled by powerful and rich people. That's the world we live in, folks. That's reality. And like I said, whatever timeline CERN pushed us on, get me the fuck off of it because this isn't one I want to live in. But I'm not suicidal. And I don't think I'd have any ties.
If I kill myself, it wasn't my kill myself.
Exactly. I just went on a different timeline.
It wasn't suicide.
I still want to be alive, just on a different timeline.
Right. It's hard to come up with a snappy joke for that abysmal fucking
Sorry,
situation.
just be angry. That's what I specialize in.
I don't know.
You're trying to balance me out.
I'm trying to add a little whipped cream to your fucking ganache over there. But it's just hard to think about that. And people, the discerning thing is that Epstein documentary came out at the same time as roughly the same time as the R. Kelly documentary came out about what happened to the women in those situations. And it's like the R. Kelly thing's horrific. Yes. Epstein thing, horrific for the women. Yes. But there was nothing else to the R. Kelly thing. He didn't have other ties.
It was just him being a scumbag.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is more than that. But everybody got lost on, did you hear what happened to those poor girls? It's like, yes, it was terrible what happened to them. We're not discounting that. Downplaying, discounting, whatever. Anything to remove yourself from the temptation. My whole point being is that there are huge, like I said before, this is bigger than JFK. This is bigger than fucking Watergate. If our elected officials and the people that are running corporations that dictate where our country is going have been compromised, that should be front page news. And they aren't telling you it. And there's a reason why. That's all I'll say. Is that I just want the truth again, but there's no hard-hitting journalists There's no. I heard somebody say the other day on a podcast, what would the journalists do nowadays if Watergate was happening again? We have our answer. This is bigger than Watergate.
They'd stick their fucking head in the sand.
This is exactly what they're doing. They're writing about, well, people that work out are actually fat phobic and they don't appreciate fat people.
And
That's
they're
what
probably
doing.
Nazis.
And they
Trickle back to
exactly.
WMD Podcast
It's like,
episode 87.
This is our society is collapsing around us. Like we are being told, we are finding out nearly daily that we're being fucked every which way from Tuesday. But we have nothing to do. There's nothing we can do about it. And if we do something about it, it's the worst day in it's the blackest day in America's history, January 6th. But like, what are we left to do? We vote for you and you turn your back on us. We petitioned you and you say, I'm going to fix that for you. And you turn right around and ignore everything we just said and just make more money for yourself and make sure that you're elected again. Like that's not democracy. We don't live in a democracy anymore. I'm telling you right now, like if media is in league with politics, that's not a democracy. It's socialism at light and communism at most. So we aren't getting real information from the media outlets that are supposed to give it to us. And we'll never find out what's really going on.
You can always come here, though.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, and not just here. If this is the first episode you've ever listened to, and if you've gone 2 hours to listen to this point, congratulations.
It's only
you're
one.
a stallion.
A little over one.
A little over one? Oh, it felt like 2.
What, are you tired of hearing us talk?
I'm tired of hearing me talk. I know you're never tired of hearing me talk. But anyway, so my whole point being is that seek other fonts of knowledge. Seek other fountains.
But mainly us.
But stick to us, obviously. We're better than everybody
We
else.
can be your launching off point. You can always go to the website and look at our show notes and read the articles we read and then make up your own mind.
Exactly. But just don't accept what they're telling you anymore. That's how we get Orwellian. That's how we get into this world where like, well, I used to think gravity existed yesterday, but CNN came out and had a new documentary about how gravity might not exist. But I still got my feet planted on the floor. Gravity must not exist. All right, I'm going to go out and just fly tomorrow. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what's actually happening? This is where if you track back to the CERN thing, like, I don't know what episode that was that we discussed it.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
But
Exactly.
this is the thing that like makes you think that we're not where we need to be.
Not even close.
But it's going to take all of us to direct it back to where we need to be.
Or just a very pissed off and motivated minority of us.
Peacefully. Whatever you do, do it peacefully. Not like Chaz, not like the peaceful protests of 2020.
Yeah.
Do it peacefully.
Relatively.
Dane, where can they find this super upbeat and cheery podcast episode at?
They can find it at wmdpodcast.com/101. They can find it on any podcast app. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction and it'll be at the top of the list, episode 101. They can also get the videos on YouTube. We talked about a lot of inflammatory stuff. Are we going to? Yeah, we'll
Fuck it.
Fuck it. YouTube.
Will be Weapons of Meme Destruction 2.
YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey. You can find us on all those platforms. Again, please subscribe and follow us on all 3. Even if you personally never use Rumble or Odyssey, it will just be a nice place to have in the event. Which again, if we get big enough for enough people to care, which obviously is the goal.
Dane, we are like the
YouTube-
141st Australian political podcast. Don't poo-poo anything.
YouTube will definitely be coming for us. So you definitely want to follow us on those other platforms just in case we get kicked off.
Elon, buy YouTube.
And you're like, where's my episode this week, guys? Go over there. It'll be there. But you can also link up with us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Get in those comment sections, chop it up with us, chop it up with the rest of the memes over on those platforms. And if you would like to come into I guess I would call the inner sanctum safe space. The safe space that you got to pay to get into. And again, before you jump down our throats about, oh my God, you got to pay for it. Yeah, that keeps the crazies
Dean,
out.
my mic's been off this entire time.
Shut your mouth. And so if you pay $5 a month, which can be found over at the Support Our Work tab at wmdpodcast.com, $5 a month gets you into our exclusive invite-only Facebook page where you can talk to us directly, suggest show topics, share memes and articles, and just basically engage with other sane people. But you can also see while you're over there at the website other opportunities to support us on a monthly basis. But absent that, please just show your support through likes, shares, subscribes, rates, all the good stuff. You know what to do. You're tech savvy people, much more so than David and I. And with that being said, David, next week, episode 102. What are we talking about? Some serious shit.
I bet it's going to be just as uplifting as this week.
Hey,
I'll
listen.
tell you that much. Actually, maybe I'll run into another biker. Maybe I'll have another thing that we just have like a David goes on a rant fucking episode. We just throw caution to the wind.
Or I like to think that
I didn't actually run over a biker hit me, but that's not the point.
In the
Episode 5.
In the darkness of a lot of the things that we discuss on this episode, I like to think, in a very sunlight being the best disinfectant kind of way, by us talking about this stuff, there is a little bit of lightness to it.
And there's a call to action, so there's a little positivity. You can get involved, move forward.
Yeah, like
you
giving
have
us money, stuff like that. David's a starving artist. He wants to stay starving forever, apparently.
I just want to write my songs and not be judged for them. But my whole point is that we don't know what we're talking about next week. We're going to let...
Because crazy shit happens every week, but...
Every hour of every week. So anyway.
But if you get in that Facebook group and suggest topics to us, you can put a thumb on the scale in terms of what we talk about.
Just perchance to dream. But other than that, you'll have to tune in at 102 to find out. And other than that, please stay safe. And more importantly, stay free.